It is Saturday, January 24th, 2026. And I have to be honest with you, looking at the absolute mountain of documents we have on the desk today, I feel a very specific kind of exhaustion.
It's a heavy stack. And it's not just the physical weight of the paper.
No.
It's the weight of the subject itself.
Exactly. It's the fatigue. If you are listening to this right now, you probably feel it too. It feels like we have been, I don't know, about to find out the truth regarding Jeffrey Epstein for what, 7 years, 10 years? And yet here we are, 6 years after his death, and late 2025 just decided to dump an entirely new puzzle on our laps.
It really was a chaotic end to the year. I mean, if you had told me 5 years ago that in 2026 we'd still be parsing through new evidence, I would have said you were crazy.
Oh, absolutely.
But look at just the last 6 months. You had the release of the first 50 years birthday book in September.
Right.
Which just completely reignited the whole social network debate.
And the FBI finally, and I mean finally, releasing the jail footage in July.
The so-called glitch footage.
Yeah.
Which we are definitely going to spend some time on later because the implications of that are just staggering.
Staggering. And then, of course, the political football of the client list that just keeps getting punted back and forth.
And back and forth.
It feels like we are drowning in data, but starving for actual context.
That's the perfect way to frame it. We have millions of data points, but no single narrative that makes sense of them all. For most people, Epstein is just a collection of headlines.
Yeah, he's a meme.
He's the island, he's the plane, he's the suicide or not controversy.
It was all noise.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to cut through that noise. We aren't doing another true crime rehash. I don't want to talk about the lurid details just for the shock value. I want to understand the mechanism.
The mechanism is key because when you look at the source material, I mean, really look at it. Epstein doesn't come across like a criminal mastermind in the traditional sense.
No.
He looks like a ghost in the machine. He's a study in how the systems we trust, finance, academia, intelligence, the Justice Department, they all have back doors. And he found every single one of them.
So let's test that theory. We need to go back way before the island, before the jet, before the billions. I'm looking at this timeline we built out, and the first real anomaly is right here. 1974, the Dalton School.
The Upper East Side. Very elite. The kind of place where the tuition costs more than most people's salaries.
Extremely elite. And here is Jeffrey Epstein, age 21. He is teaching calculus and physics to the children of the Manhattan aristocracy.
Right.
But looking at his resume here, he's a dropout. He went to Cooper Union, dropped out, went to NYU, dropped out.
Right. He has no degree. He has no credentials. In fact, he didn't even have a teaching license.
So let's just pause and really look at this. How does a college dropout with no degree get hired to teach physics at one of the most prestigious prep schools in America? You can't just walk in off the street and say, trust me, I know math.
Well, this is where the mechanism starts to show itself right away. The headmaster of Dalton at the time was a man named Donald Barr.
Barr. Wait, as in Bill Barr, the former attorney general.
His father. Now, we have to be really precise with the source material here because this is where internet conspiracies usually just go completely off the rails.
Okay.
Donald Barr actually left Dalton just a few months before Epstein started teaching. So there isn't a signature on a contract that says Donald Barr hired Jeffrey Epstein.
Got it. So he didn't directly hire him.
Likely not directly, but Barr had established a very, very specific culture there. He was an iconoclast. He wrote science fiction space operas, actually.
No way.
Yeah. He believed in talent over credentials. He liked hiring unconventional people who he thought were geniuses, regardless of a piece of paper. And the administration that followed him kept that ethos for a while.
So Epstein fits the profile of a Barr hire, even if Barr himself didn't sign the contract. He just walked in, charmed the right people, and projected this aura of unconventional genius.
Exactly. And even then, at 21, the behavior pattern was already visible. We have accounts from students' verified accounts that he was blurring lines immediately.
Right, quite.
Showing up at student parties on the weekends, flirting with the girls.
In 2026, that gets you fired and arrested within a week. In 1974.
In 1974, in that specific circle, it was just eccentric. He was the cool young teacher.
Wow.
And he didn't get fired for the inappropriate behavior, oddly enough. He was eventually dismissed for poor performance.
So he just wasn't a good teacher.
Apparently not. But by then, it didn't matter. He had already extracted what he needed from Dalton.
He didn't need the salary. He needed the Rolodex.
He needed a specific parent. And this is the pivot point in his entire life. He was tutoring the daughter of Alan Greenberg.
Ace Greenberg.
Yeah.
The CEO of Bear Stearns, a Wall Street legend.
A titan. Epstein charms the daughter, helps her with her calculus, and eventually meets the father. He impresses Greenberg with his, quote, mind for numbers. And suddenly, the fired physics teacher is a junior assistant at an investment bank.
Talk about failing upward. He gets fired from a school and lands on a trading floor.
But wait, because this is where people usually gloss over the details. They just say, he went to Wall Street and got rich.
Right.
But look at the speed. He joins Bear Stearns in 1976. By 1980, just 4 years later, he is a limited partner.
Is that normal? I mean, that sounds fast.
It's virtually impossible, especially for a guy with no MBA, no degree, and no prior experience. It usually takes a decade of grinding to get there, if you ever do.
So what was he doing?
It suggests he wasn't just doing grunt work. He wasn't a quant genius analyzing charts in a back room. He was a salesman.
What was he selling?
Tax avoidance. He figured out early on that the one thing rich people care about more than making money is not losing money to the government. He made himself a fixer for wealthy clients. He identified loopholes.
Okay, but if he was so good at it, why did he get fired in 1981? I'm looking at the reason here, and it says Reg D violation.
Yeah.
We need to translate that because it sounds like boring compliance stuff, but I have a feeling it's important.
Oh, it's very important. Regulation D is an SEC rule. Basically, it allows companies to sell private investments without registering them as public securities, but you have to follow very strict rules.
Okay.
You can usually only sell to accredited investors, people who can afford to lose the money, and you have to follow strict disclosure protocols.
And Epstein.
Epstein just ignored the rules. He gave his own money to a friend to invest in a deal, effectively trying to skirt the regulations to get in on a hot opportunity. He thought he was smarter than the compliance department.
He thought rules were suggestions.
Exactly. And when Bear Stearns caught him, they cut him loose. They didn't want the liability.
So now he's out on his own.
And this enters his most mysterious phase, the bounty hunter years.
I honestly thought this was an internet myth until I saw the documents on the Obregon case. This feels like a movie script that got rejected for being too unbelievable.
It sounds like fiction. From 1982 to around 1986, he sets up this thing called the Intercontinental Assets Group. He calls himself a financial troubleshooter.
A troubleshooter.
He's traveling to Europe, carrying a gun or claiming to, anyway, helping people recover stolen money.
He helped the Spanish actress Ana Obregon.
Right.
Her father's money.
Yes. Her father had lost millions in a real estate scam. Epstein tracked the money down. He played the part of the heavy. He recovered the funds.
It's giving. International man of mystery, but very, very low budget.
It's shady. But it bridges the gap between banker and criminal because this work led him directly to Stephen Hoffenberg.
Towers Financial.
The biggest Ponzi scheme in history until Bernie Madoff came along. And this is really where Jeffrey Epstein gets his PhD in fraud.
Okay, and this is what I struggle with. Stephen Hoffenberg went to prison for this. He stole $450 million. Epstein was his right-hand man, right?
They're inseparable. In 1987, Epstein is making $25,000 a month.
In $1987, that's like, what, $70,000 a month today? More?
Plus bonuses. They are flying on private jets. They're trying to execute a hostile takeover of Pan Am. They are living like kings. But here's the mechanism again. Towers Financial was a fraud. They were selling bonds to investors, promising these huge returns, and then paying off the old investors with a new investor's money.
A classic Ponzi.
Classic. And Hoffenberg later claimed explicitly that Epstein was the architect of the whole scheme. He said Epstein was the one who figured out how to manipulate the balance sheets.
So why didn't Epstein go to jail in the 90s? Hoffenberg did.
Timing. It all comes down to timing. Epstein left the company in 1989. The House of Cards didn't collapse until 1993.
So by the time the feds came knocking.
He was already gone. He had distanced himself. He was never charged. He walked away with the money, the connections, and none of the prison time.
It's the Teflon effect starting to form. He learns that if you leave the room right before the bomb goes off, you don't get blamed for the explosion.
Precisely. And that money, which was essentially stolen, money laundered him into his next phase, the phase where he captures a whale.
Les Wexner, the billionaire behind Victoria's Secret and The Limited.
This relationship is the cornerstone of Epstein's wealth. Without Wexner, there is no Jeffrey Epstein as we know him.
I want to drill down on the financial relationship here because the word advisor feels way too soft. You have notes here about power of attorney.
Yes. In 1991, Epstein gains full power of attorney over Wexner's personal and financial life.
Okay, for the non-lawyers listening, that doesn't just mean he gives advice. That means he can sign checks, he can buy property, he can hire and fire people. He is essentially acting as Leslie Wexner.
It is total encapsulation. Wexner severed ties with his other longtime advisors. He moved his assets into trusts that Epstein controlled. And over the years, Epstein received something like $200 million in fees from Wexner.
$200 million. For what? Beating the S&P 500?
No. In fact, the source material we have suggests Epstein's actual trading returns were mediocre at best. He wasn't Warren Buffett. He wasn't a wizard of the stock market.
So what was Wexner paying for?
For lifestyle management and problem solving. Epstein bought the Manhattan Mansion, the largest private residence in the city, from Wexner. He got the private jet from Wexner.
It sounds less like an employee and more like, well, I don't know what it sounds like, but the level of dependency is staggering.
And he secured that dependency by saving Wexner money in other ways. We have to talk about the Virgin Islands setup.
The tax haven.
This was the big pitch. Epstein moves his operation to the U.S. Virgin Islands. He sets up the Financial Trust Company. By doing this, thanks to local economic incentives designed to bring businesses to the islands.
Right, they want the investment.
They want the investment. So he drops his effective tax rate from nearly 40% down to roughly 4%.
So he saves his clients, Wexner, another billionaire, Leon Black, tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes.
And that buys you a lot of forgiveness. You can be eccentric, you can be creepy, you can be a college dropout, as long as you are saving the billionaire more money than you cost him.
Money is the ultimate detergent.
It scrubs everything clean until it doesn't.
Which brings us to part 2, the network.
Yeah, because he didn't just want to be rich, he wanted to be respected, or at least he wanted people to think he was smart.
He had a deep, gnawing insecurity about his lack of education. I think that dropout status haunted him. He didn't just buy cars and planes, he bought scientists. He collected them like trophies. I'm looking at the list here. Stephen Hawking, Marvin Minsky from MIT, Nobel Prize winners. He was throwing money at Harvard, at the MIT Media Lab.
He hosted the Mindshift conference on his private island. But if you look at what he was interested in, it gets dark very, very quickly. He wasn't funding climate change research or basic biology.
Eugenics
and transhumanism. He was obsessed with DNA. He told scientists he wanted to seed the human race with his own DNA.
The baby ranch concept. That sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Yes. He reportedly had a plan to use his Zorro Ranch in New Mexico to impregnate women on a massive scale. He wanted his head and his penis frozen after death. This is a God complex in its purest form. He genuinely believed his genetics were superior.
And the scientists, they just nodded along. They took the money.
They took the checks. We have emails where they joke about his weird theories, but the money cleared. It's the exact same pattern as the bankers. Moral questions tend to fade when the funding is generous.
Okay, we have to talk about the political names. And I want to be careful here because, as we saw in 2025, this topic is basically a weapon now. It feels like every time a document drops, one side shouts, "Ha, gotcha," and the other side shouts, "Fake news."
It's radioactive. But we have to be neutral reporters here. The reality is, Epstein was an equal opportunity infiltrator.
Let's look at the two big ones, Trump and Clinton. We've all seen the photos, we've heard the quotes, but what does the new evidence actually say?
Let's take Trump first. They were neighbors in Palm Beach. Socially, they were very close in the 90s and early 2000s. You have that famous 2002 quote where Trump calls him a terrific guy and notes he likes women on the younger side.
Which, knowing what we know now, just makes your skin crawl.
It does. But then there is a rift. Around 2004, they have a falling out over real estate. The Maison de l'Amitié mansion in Palm Beach.
Trump outbid him.
Epstein was furious.
Yeah.
And they seemingly stopped hanging out after that.
But the 2025 releases really muddied the water on this rift.
They did. That first 50 years birthday book that was released last September contained a letter attributed to Trump that seemed very warm, written well after the supposed fight.
Right.
Trump's team immediately claimed he didn't sign it, that it was a forgery, and now there are legal challenges about its authenticity.
And then we have the tapes released in 2024 where Epstein is just bragging.
He's on tape claiming to be Trump's closest friend. But we have to remember, Epstein was a pathological liar. He lied about his degree, he lied about his money. Was he lying about his access to the president to impress a 19-year-old girl he was talking to?
It's entirely possible.
It's very possible.
Okay, what about Clinton? The flight logs are infamous.
The hard evidence is 27 flights on Epstein's plane. 27. And visits to the White House by Epstein in the early 90s. The connection through Ghislaine Maxwell was incredibly strong.
But Clinton's defense has always been very specific. I never went to the island.
And surprisingly, the Secret Service records that were released back in 2017 actually back that up. They show him on the plane, but they don't show agents deploying to Little St. James. So technically, he might be telling the truth about the island while lying by omission about the depth of the entire relationship.
It seems like Epstein didn't care about the party platform. He just cared about the power.
He collected power. Party affiliation was irrelevant. You have Bill Gates, who met with him after the 2008 conviction.
That's the one that just baffles me. It's 2011. Epstein is a registered sex offender, and Bill Gates is taking meetings with him.
Gates called it a huge mistake later on, but it just shows how Epstein managed to launder his reputation. He convinced powerful people he was some kind of victim of the system rather than a predator.
It wasn't just Gates either. What about Noam Chomsky?
That was another 2025 revelation. Financial transfers of about $270,000 and meetings well after the conviction.
And Ehud Barak, the former Israeli prime minister.
A frequent visitor and a business partner in a company called Carbine. The network was wide and it was deep.
Which brings us to the deep dive part of this episode, the intelligence angle. For years, this was dismissed as just a crazy conspiracy theory.
Epstein was a spy, he was Mossad, he was CIA, all of that.
Right. But the deeper we dig into some of these business deals, and especially the Acosta comments, it stops looking like a theory and starts looking like a business model.
It really does.
Let's break down that Acosta comment, because that is the smoking gun for a lot of people.
Okay, so remember Alexander Acosta. He was the U.S. attorney in Florida who signed that sweetheart plea deal in 2008. The deal we'll get to in a second.
Right.
When Acosta was being vetted for labor secretary years later, he was asked why on earth he gave Epstein such a light sentence. His answer was chilling. He said he was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and was above his pay grade.
A U.S. attorney was told to back off because a child predator was an intelligence asset.
That is the direct implication of his statement. And then you have to look at the house, the setup in the New York mansion, the media room.
The wiring. I read about the wiring.
Sources who worked on the house described a system of pinhole cameras in the bathrooms, in the bedrooms. The feeds all ran to a central server room.
That's not just for perversion. That is a compromat factory.
Exactly. If you invite Bill Gates or Prince Andrew or a senator or a president to your house and you catch them in a compromising position, you own them. The 2025 email releases showed Epstein acting as a back channel between Israel and Saudi Arabia. He wasn't just a party host, he was a geopolitical messenger.
It explains the untouchable status he seemed to have for decades. He had insurance policies on powerful people.
Until he became too toxic to keep.
So let's talk about the actual crimes in that deal. Part 3. Because before all the intelligence theories and the power brokers, they were actual victims, real teenage girls.
And we have to be clear about the system he built. It wasn't random. It was an industrial operation. Recruiters, like Ghislaine Maxwell, would find vulnerable girls, often from broken homes, often needing money, and bring them into this world of massages. It was a pyramid scheme of abuse.
And in 2005, the Palm Beach police actually did their job.
They did. A police chief named Michael Ryder, they raided the house, they found the cameras, they found the photos. They were ready to charge him with multiple felonies that would have put him away for life. They had him dead to rights.
And then the feds stepped in. The non-prosecution agreement, the NPA.
This document it's a legal unicorn. I've been studying legal cases for a long time, and I have never seen anything like it. It granted federal immunity not just to Epstein, but to any potential co-conspirators.
Wait, any potential co-conspirators?
Named or unnamed. Imagine robbing a bank, making a deal, and the prosecutor says, okay, you and anyone who helped you drive the car or hold the gun, even people we don't know about yet, are all safe forever.
It's a blanket amnesty for the entire criminal enterprise.
And they kept this deal secret from the victims, which a federal judge later ruled was illegal. It violated the Crime Victims' Rights Act, but the damage was done. The result was he served 13 months.
And I struggle to even use the word served.
It was a complete joke.
Yeah.
He slept in a private wing of the county jail, but for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, he was on work release.
So he just went to the office.
He went to his office in West Palm Beach. He had his driver. He met with lawyers and young women.
And didn't he hire the jail deputies? I remember reading that.
Yes. He paid the off-duty deputies to act as his private security guards and receptionists while he was at the office. The police were on his payroll. It was a hallucination of justice.
But the hallucination finally ended in 2019. The Miami Herald investigation reignited the case. The public outrage was just too loud to ignore. He gets arrested again.
And this time, it was different. It was federal. They raided the Manhattan townhouse. They found $70,000 in cash, diamonds, and crucially, a fake Austrian passport.
And what was on the passport?
It had his picture, a different name, and it listed a Saudi residence.
Which screams flight risk.
Which is exactly why he was denied bail. He was looking at federal sex trafficking conspiracy charges. The walls were finally closing in. He was facing 45 years to life.
And then, August 10th, 2019, the death.
The official narrative. Suicide by hanging.
Okay, and this is where we need to be really careful and separate the internet frenzy from the forensic reality, because the anomalies are real. We aren't making them up.
They are very real. First, just the protocol failures. He had been taken off suicide watch shortly before his death.
Which makes absolutely no sense for a high-profile inmate who had just tried to hurt himself weeks earlier.
His cellmate was transferred out at the last minute, leaving him alone. The two guards assigned to his unit admitted to falsifying logs. They fell asleep and didn't check on him for at least 3 hours.
And the cameras. The camera that were pointing at his cell.
2 cameras outside the cell. Malfunction.
It just reads like a bad spy novel. Oh, sorry, the cameras broke and the guards fell asleep at the exact same time.
It strains credulity.
Thanks.
But let's look at the forensics. The hyoid bone. This is the detail everyone latched onto, and for good reason.
Explain that for us. What is the hyoid bone and why is it so important?
It's a small U-shaped bone in the neck that supports the tongue. Dr. Michael Baden, the famous pathologist hired by the Epstein family to observe the autopsy, noted the hyoid was broken. Not just broken, but fractured in 3 places.
Okay.
Now, in hangings, especially typical suicides, this happens in about 6% of cases.
6%, so it's very rare.
It's very rare. However, in strangulation homicide, it's extremely common. It's almost a signature of someone being manually strangled.
So it's possible it was suicide, but statistically, the evidence points much more strongly towards murder.
It raises a massive red flag. Dr. Baden was very clear that the injuries were more consistent with homicide or a very violent struggle.
But here is where it gets really interesting, especially for us here in 2026. Last year, in July 2025, the FBI finally released the surveillance footage from that night.
And this was supposed to put all the conspiracy theories to bed. Instead, it poured gasoline on them.
Because of the glitch.
The video has a jump, a literal time jump. The clock on the footage goes from 11.58.58 to 12.000000.
So wait, nearly 3 minutes are just gone.
Gone, erased, right at the critical moment. And it gets worse. The metadata, the digital fingerprint of the file, shows the video was modified, despite the FBI claiming it was raw, unedited footage. CBS News even cited an official saying an unedited version exists somewhere.
So let's just lay this out. We have a high-value prisoner connected to intelligence agencies who dies in a cell where the cameras break, the guards sleep, and the footage that is released 6 years later has a suspicious cut right at the critical moment and has been digitally altered.
It means that whether it was suicide or murder, the official story is incomplete at best and a cover-up at worst. It fuels the conspiracy not because people are crazy, but because there is documented incompetence or tampering by federal agencies.
It feels like gaslighting on a national scale.
It is. It forces you to ask, who benefits from the silence? Who benefits from the trial never happening?
Which brings us to the aftermath. We are now in 2026. What is the legacy of all this?
Fatigue. I think that's the main word, list fatigue.
Oh, absolutely. We've been promised the client list for years. It's always just around the corner.
And every time something is released, it's redacted, or it's just known associates, or it's widely misinterpreted. Trump's DOJ, under Pam Bondi, claimed in 2025 there was no list.
Which, I'm sorry, nobody believes.
And then you have the political weaponization. You have claims from people like James O'Keefe and Mark Epstein, Jeffrey's brother, that Democrats are scrubbing Republican names and Republicans are scrubbing Democratic names from the documents.
It's just become a culture war artifact. You have the Epstein didn't kill himself meme, which is basically a permanent fixture of the internet now. You had that bizarre statue on the National Mall last year, the best friends forever statue of Trump and Epstein.
Which the police removed almost immediately. But it shows how deeply this has embedded itself in the national psyche. It's a symbol of total elite corruption.
And sadly, in all of this, the victims so often get lost.
They do. The estate paid out over $125 million between the Victims Fund and the U.S. Virgin Islands settlement. But because the criminal case was dismissed when he died, there was no trial. There was no public reckoning. The money is a quiet settlement, not justice.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, how do we synthesize all of this? What's the takeaway?
I think we have to look at Epstein not as an anomaly, but as a symptom. He was a symptom of a system where wealth and connections can literally bend reality. He bent the financial system with offshore accounts. He bent the legal system with the MPA. He bent the social system by buying his way into Harvard and the White House.
And the deep dive takeaway here is that the story isn't just about what happened in that jail cell on August 10th. It's about how he stayed out of a cell for 30 years.
Exactly. The mechanism of his rise is every bit as important as the mystery of his fall.
I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. We know about the edited tapes, we know about the fake passport, we know about the broken bone. But the biggest question, the one that underpins everything, remains. If the blackmail tapes really existed, the ones implied by Maxwell, the ones hinted at in the Black Book, where are they now?
And more importantly, who is currently sleeping soundly at night because they haven't been released?
That is the question. Thank you for listening to The Deep Dive.
See you next time.